Now, what you have to understand is that this is the worst part of the entire story for me. Because after I heard that, I no longer had control of my body. Like, I was a zombie, basically. This thing controlled me. It made me not stand up, but it made me, like, disengage the magazine, rack the slide again, get the bullet out, put everything down on the couch, and walk towards the bed. And the whole time, like, I'm conscious in my own head as this is going on, and I'm just screaming at myself over and over and over, trying to make myself stop. I have to protect my wife. I can't let this happen. I have to stay and protect everybody. This thing has full control over me.
Yeah. Please tell me that I can't, that I won't, that I fail, that I'll never make it out, yeah. Please tell me all the bad, never good. Fill my head full of every single doubt, yeah. Please say any negative thoughts. I pop off when I hear people say I cannot. I get off to the thought of proving everyone wrong. I won't stop to the top, so you better back off and get lost. I'ma stay loud, stay proud, never running out, never heading south. I'll be spreading out, call it word of mouth. Can't put me down, I'll be getting loud. You can have your doubts, not what I'm about. Have your cloud, it be raining now. I keep making sound, go another round. I'm legend bound, can't stop me now. You don't wanna fuck with me. A slow burn like a disease. Just tell me that I can and I'll show you things that you couldn't believe. Just tell me that I can. Just tell me that I can. Just tell me that I can. Just tell me that I can.
Alright guys, well, I've decided that there's been a lot of changes going on for me since I've started doing this. Equipment has gotten better, I've done lots of upgrading and learned lots of things, and if nothing else, the audio quality alone is worth redoing my stories. Or, at the very least, this one. We'll see. If everybody wants more of it like this, then tell me. Because, yes, it's going to sound a lot better. The backgrounds and whatnot are a lot better. I don't have the distractions, and I can kind of do a much better job of putting this out there in a way that's more coherent, I guess you could say. Now, obviously, if you've heard me come on to other shows before, you've heard this story before. It's not going to be anything new for you, However, when I first recorded it for prosperity's sake here, as I mentioned, the quality wasn't as good audio-wise, and there's just... It's worth retelling. We've got a lot more subscribers. The view count on that's not very high, and I want to make sure that everybody that's out there in the audience know that when I talk about things, there's a reason why I take the stances. There's a reason why I act as if I understand my guests in the way that I do, because I've lived it. I've been through it. So, for that sake alone, I feel like it's worth giving this a shot. Now, if you guys like it, and you want more, like I said, let me know. So, let's give this a shot, shall we? Okay, so now, as like a bit of an introduction there, understand that I'm just like everybody. I very much enjoyed this kind of information. Ever since I was young, I was always interested in cryptids and ghosts and aliens, UFOs. I always always enjoyed it, and I consumed every bit of the information that I could find on the matter, because it was just so fascinating. And I never grew out of it. I guess maybe eventually you should, but yeah, no, I didn't. It was always a baseline, no matter what I was doing, no matter what I was into, it was still something that always interested me. Now, when I was in college, I listened to the Joe Rogan podcast episode that had Stephen Greer on, and I was like, this is very interesting. A lot of it was making me think like, yeah, it's kind of hippie stuff, right? But at the same time, I was like, this is just, it's interesting. Like, he's having these kind of results. So I was like, okay, well, let's do some digging. Let's look into more about the Stephen Greer guy. So I did, and I was like, yeah, okay, yeah. He's having all kind of results to go with these stories that he's talking about. There's all kind of pictures. There's all kind of evidence. So I was like, well, you know what? Let's give it a shot. What could hurt? I'm hanging out doing day and night classes at college. The wife just graduated not long ago, and she's on night shift. It's just me. Let's give it a shot. So, I download the app and all that, and I was like, let's send it. Let's see what happens. Okay, so I guess the best way to kind of start that particular bit off would be I found the initiation to start the meditation or astral projection to be pretty easy, actually. I mean, the main problem that I had was just the distraction of his voice alone. Like, I felt like I was able to, for lack of a better term, fly fairly easily, outside of my body. And I felt like I was here, no problem, easy peasy, flying around the planet. Because I vividly remember seeing clouds and everything. But I didn't feel like I was able to actually leave until the video ended, because his voice was just so distracting for me. But once I did, it was, like a rocket ship. I was just able to fly on out there until I could find something, and project my thoughts and see what was there, what was available to talk, and it didn't take long. Now, that being said, I'm not really going to go into the conversations that I had with with those entities that I had conversations with here. Technically, that video already exists. Not in this format, of course, but it already exists. So if you really just want to go back and find out, you can find out. It's there. We'll see if we can get to it eventually. But it's more gonna be a matter of, do you guys like me redoing this, reformatting this, re-cleaning this up, and actually trying my best to lay it out there proper? That's gonna be for y'all to decide. So, with that being said, let's just say that as far as the contact and the communications I had, that was something that I had lots of results from, and it's something that I did every single night for about 4 nights. And the story that I'm going to tell you here picks up after that, because after that I wasn't able to do that because my wife, her shift changed, and now she was going to be on days. So the night that I would have done it next, I was unable to do so. But as you guys would know from my story from here and from all the other appearances that I've made and have told this story, you know that the night that I didn't do it was the same night that something decided to come and make it a little appearance, I guess, if you will. And that was enough to dissuade me a little bit from thinking to myself, wow, this stuff is all so interesting and enlightening, I guess, but is it real? Well, once it decides, or well, not necessarily it, but something decides to pop up and prove to me that night, yeah, it's pretty real, bro. Pretty real. Alright, now then, the way things kick off, I was asleep, so was the wife. And we both get awoken by something outside of the window. Now, this thing to me sounds like two critters fighting. You know, I don't know what kind of critter, but it reminds me a lot of something like a possum or a raccoon. Now, that being said, I did have a family of raccoons that lived across the driveway, like directly in front of my FEMA trailer from me. And, you know, we got along pretty well. I liked them. When I would go outside and have a little campfire and drink a beer or two, you know, just to kind of relax from my all day and all night at college. You know, they'd come out and hang out with me. They weren't never, like, aggressive. I never, like, fed them, per se. Well, I mean, I guess I'd every now and then kind of throw them something. But, you know, not habitually to a point where they would be a problem. Like, they would just say, oh, hey, there's a fire out there. Look, the human's there. Let's go hang out. See if maybe he'll throw me something. If not, whatever. We'll just keep on doing raccoon stuff. Like, they were pretty chill. I liked them a lot. And, you know, I also had a dog that lived outside. And she was a cow dog. She was an Australian Shepherd. And she wasn't the biggest one in the world. But she was fearless, you know. Like, she loved to go out and just kill critters. And, I mean, it was pretty normal for me to wake up to, like, a dead possum or something at the door that she had left me. Almost like a cat in a way. It was weird. But she never really had an issue with the raccoons, you know, and I don't know if it's because they hung out with us or what. Like, I don't know why. You know, everything else seemed to be fair game. I mean, even coyotes. I mean, she'd go out and run coyotes and foxes. But never the coons. But, you know, when I heard this noise, I was just like, oh no. My dog's out there killing my little buddies. I don't want them hurt. I was like, okay, well, that sucks. And then the wife wakes up, you know, and she's hitting me. You know, Jim, go get that dog. I've got to get some sleep. Go fix it. I'm like, okay, I'll go fix it. You know, and at that time, I was just like, yeah, don't hurt my friends. They're cool. What the heck are you doing, dog? You know, so that's what was going through my head at the time. So it's like, all right, let's get up there and go take a look. I get out there, and it's just dead quiet. There's nothing. The sound that was coming through the window, I mean, that sounded like it was just right there, is gone. There's literally nothing. But I'm just like, well, okay, that's weird, but let's keep going, you know, and I walk around a good little bit. And I can't find nothing. You know, I was out there a good 5-10 minutes, whatever. And I didn't look too hardcore because, you know, I'm just walking out there. I don't got a flashlight or nothing. I'm just walking around calling the dog. Nothing. You know, and it should have been a good giveaway at that point in time that There's no cricket sounds either. But, yeah, so I'm just like, okay, well, guess I fixed it. There's nothing out here. There's nothing to find. I don't know where the dog's at, but ain't nothing. So, okay. That was easy. Let's head back in, I guess, right? Alright, so, that's done. Go back in. The wife's like, did you get the dog? I'm like, yeah, I got the dog. Okay, good. I'm trying to sleep. Yeah, I know. So I crawl back in bed with her, and I feel like we fell asleep, but I don't really know for sure if we did, because it wasn't very much time at all that had passed when the sound started kicking up again. And, of course, the aggro starts immediately. She starts hitting on me pretty good, and, yeah. She's like, she's punctuating each word with a punch, Go get that dog. I'm trying to sleep. I'm just like, yeah, okay, ow, okay, yeah. I'm gonna get the dog. I'm not gonna come back inside of this house until I find the dog. You better. Okay. So, I'm like, alright. Go back, get the shoes on, and this time, grab the flashlight. That's all I need. Me, shoes, boxers, flashlight. That's it. So, now I'm determined. I am not coming back into this house until I find that freaking dog or whatever is out there causing these issues. So, the story begins once again. Or at least mostly starts once again, because I go back outside armed with the flashlight and shoes, and it's the same story. There's literally nothing. However, I am able to walk around and call for the dog and look underneath equipment like tractors and underneath house and barns and out in the field. Like, I went over that place with a fine-tooth comb, only to find nothing. Once again, I will point out that there was not a sound, which is quite the odd thing for, spring-ish time, between spring and summer in Alabama. There's always all kind of crickets and tree frogs and cicadas and all that stuff. No, none of that. Literally none of that. And that should have been my warning sign. But unfortunately, I'm on a mission. And a bit stubborn. So, yeah. Didn't really let me know. At least not in the way that I wish it would have. But, like I said, I went over that place very well and spent a lot of time out there, only to find nothing. So, at this point, it's once again time to give up, because what else can I possibly do? Because I just don't have a clue. I don't know what's going on. But I'm just like, okay, well, I reckon it's time to give up. So, with that being said, head back towards the house. Now, as I come around the corner of the FEMA trailer and fixing to go inside, I notice that there's something hanging in the sky. And all the stories that I know about this place, the things that happened to my wife's father, and all the 5 UFO stories that I've heard, outside of her family, all of that starts flooding back in. And I'm just like, oh no. Because that light in the sky, y'all, I don't want nothing to do with that light. Now, I guess it would be a good time to point out the coloration of the light. I don't know if these things matter, but perhaps they do. I'm not sure. But, so the color of the light was, I usually always describe it as warm white, as in light bulb color, but bordering on orange. And no, this isn't the first time, well, this isn't the last time, I should say, that I've seen that color. It wouldn't be the first time either, but I digress. But yeah, so that's the size. And it's about, I don't know, baseball size, give or take. You know, and it only appears to be several hundred feet above the trees. So, yeah, there's that. But basically, the thoughts in my head at this time is, I just don't want nothing to do with that. No. I want nothing to do with whatever that could possibly be. But that's when I make the worst mistake of my life. Probably. And before I turn to go in, I shine my flashlight up the driveway. And when I do, I see that there is something at the end of my driveway. Now, the flashlight, understand, it's not a spotlight, it is a floodlight. It's an older model LED light. It's still very bright, and I still have it to this day. It is a Craftsman Next-Tech 12 volt. So, that all being said, what you got to understand is I can see a lot of what the light is able to light up. I can see all around this figure, not great, but enough. And this figure at the end of the driveway is blacker than the blackest black, is the best way that I know how to describe it. I often refer to it as like a reverse predator cloak, in that it seems to be literally absorbing all of the light around it. It's almost like it's a black hole. And, you know, the weird thing about that is I can still see the definition. Like, I can tell depth perception. I can obviously see the entire shape of this thing. And basically, at the end of the driveway, all right, so here we go. We'll go into the descriptive part of it. Now, it basically has a large head, but understand that it's not disproportionately large for the body. It does look like a classical gray kind of look. Only difference in that would be the size of the eyes. But before we get to that, it has very defined high cheekbones and a pointed chin. Alright, so now we go back up to the eyes. The eyes are very almond shaped, but not like the crazy wraparound things. They just look large for the body. And, you know, but somehow not disproportionate. But, you know, nowhere near as large as a classic gray. But alright, now we go down, and we have a very long neck. And, you know, not like sauropod, dinosaur kind of like long neck, but, you know, longer than what I feel like it should be. And as an interesting aside, there is essentially a Nephilim tribe in the book of Exodus that is described. If I'm not mistaken, it's Horim, but I could be wrong on that. But anyways, that translates into long neck. So there's a little interesting connection for you, but might mean nothing for this. Who knows? But anyways, we go to the shoulders, and they're very flat and very wide. And from there, we're going to go down to the chest area. Now, the chest area is very triangular shaped. Alright, and I can kind of make out ribs, but it's very, very triangular. Alright, but now let's go back up to the arms. The arms are very long. Very, very long. They don't seem to have much in the way of muscle definition to them, with the exception of maybe like, the top of the arm, like what a deltoid is. At least I'm pretty sure that's its name. That seems to be decent, but the rest of it's just very spindly. Now, the fingers, the hand is very large. The hand is very wide, and it appears to have 3 fingers and a thumb, and the fingers are very long. I remember that the hands and fingers all hung down well past its knees. And if I had to put a length on the fingers, I would say probably around the 10-inch mark. So there's the upper body. Let's go back up. Now, where the chest ends, where our stomach and abdomen is, was very skinny. Like, I felt like I could wrap my hands around this thing. I don't see how it could live or be alive, because it's like there's no organs there at all. Think of the skeleton hanging up in your science class, right? Now stretch like some leather or latex or something down that thing. Because there's no organs there, you would basically just have a spine. Now, there's a little bit there, but not much. And, yeah. Okay. Now, let's go to the pelvis area. So, once again, think of the picture of the skeleton with the whatever stretched over it. It's very heart-shaped, the pelvis, just like ours is. And that just really caught my attention. Like, very strange, I guess, is the best way to put it. I don't understand why I can see so much definition there to its skeletal structure. But now, the legs is really the only part of this critter that has any definition, right? Like, they're pretty muscular. They're not super huge, but I don't think he skipped leg day too much. But, it's pretty well normal as far as build goes. Like, it's upper part, knee, lower part. But now the difference is the ankle, right? So, like, where our ankles is, there's an extra joint that comes out that juts forward, and it's kind of hawkish, like on a dog, or maybe a better definition would be like an insect or something. So there's an extra joint that comes out, and then there's a foot. And yes, it has a very large foot. And essentially, this thing is standing at the end of my driveway. That's what it looks like. Now, as far as the height goes, I know it's above 7 foot. How tall? I don't know. But as far as size comparison goes, I have a very good friend of mine who is 6'9", all right? And I used to work with him, and I'm very familiar with what he looks like at the same distance away from me. And in his work boots, I'm sure he's very close to 7 foot. So this thing is every bit of that tall, but definitely bigger, So, yeah, that's what's there. Now, I'm essentially just frozen with the light on it. I can't move. And it's not because, any external things are happening, but because I'm just in shock from what I'm seeing. And to its credit, I guess, it realized that the light, that its surroundings were lit up. And that's when it turned its head and I got the good full frontal view of its face, right? Now, the interesting thing about this is that its eyes seem to be reflecting back the light, which is white. And could it be ice shine in like the typical sense, like tapetum lucidum or whatever? It could be, I don't know, but the problem is that it was its entire eyes, not just its pupils. It's almost as if it had a covering or something over its entire eye that was reflecting back this light. And I definitely know that that was the case because, I could make out the facial features of it while it's reflecting the light. And that when it turned its head and looked at me, it looked at me in shock, like its eyebrows went up, its eyes went wide, like, oh no, it sees me. Like I saw the muscles in the face move to, make the shape of the eye move. And then essentially what it just did is turn the opposite way and run up the dirt road. And the thing to understand is, I'm still there frozen with the light, and I can pan quickly enough, but I can only see maybe 2, 3, at the most 100 feet up the dirt road from where it's at. And it clears that space so quickly. I mean, it's just boom, 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 gone. Like I can count the footsteps in my mind. It was just remarkable how fast that thing could actually move. Okay, so now that that thing has gone up the driveway, the shock that I'm in is it's like a switch is flipped, right? Like I can move and I'm suddenly like aware and present, and I'm just like, oh no, So yeah, I jump into the house, and I grab the pistol and I rack around into the chamber, and I'm just standing in front of my door waiting, and I'm scared out of my mind. And I always say, if I hear any words, any sounds, like if I hear anything, I'm just gonna unload all 17 rounds through the walls, through windows, through whatever, in the attempt to protect myself and my wife. Now, I don't know how long I stayed there in front of the door. I have no idea. I know it felt like an eternity. But eventually, I do hear something, but the problem is that it's not from outside. This is what we describe as mind speak, because it felt like it came from the center of my brain, but yet there was also like, I don't know, some engagement with the frontal lobe, like, I don't know, I don't really know how to describe all that, and at the same time, like when that's going on, it also kind of sounds, feels, whatever, like it's just all around me, like it's an all-consuming kind of thing. And the voice was, I don't know, the best way to describe it is probably androgynous, but yet very scary, and what it said to me was, if I wanted to kill you, you would already be dead. Go back to sleep now. Now, what you have to understand is that this is the worst part of the entire story for me. Because after I heard that, I no longer had control of my body. Like, I was a zombie, basically. This thing controlled me. It made me not stand up, but it made me, like, disengage the magazine, rack the slide again, get the bullet out, put everything down on the couch, and walk towards the bed. And the whole time, like, I'm conscious in my own head as this is going on, and I'm just screaming at myself over and over and over, trying to make myself stop. I have to protect my wife. I can't let this happen. I have to stay and protect everybody. This thing has full control over me, and I don't know, but I assume this is like how the PTSD that I have started, and it's like I'm scarring mental pathways in my brain, trying to make connections that can't be made, and if I could do anything to stop it at that time, I would have. But at that time, I did not know that there were things that you can do. And so, after I, got all the gun took apart and all that, I just walked to the bed, got in, and like a switch was flipped, out, and then that's all that I remembered. The next morning, I woke up in a panic, like the switch was just flicked again, and I was just like, oh no, what's going on? Where's my gun? Where's everything at? What just happened? Where's that thing? I gotta pee. That was like my thought process. So, and I realized what time it was. I was like, okay, I gotta go to school. I gotta get to class. Like, I don't have time to figure any of this out, but I definitely know I don't want to be here. So that's what I did. I took the quickest shower known to man, jumped out, went to school, and man, I was just freaked out, and I was jumpy the whole day. It was bad. I still am to this day, but that was bad. So that's generally the story. There's not really a whole lot more that goes with it. I talked to my uncle a little bit about it, and he had talked with our neighbor, and he, like, when I told him the story, he asked, like, what night was it? And I told him. He's like, oh, you know what? That's interesting, because your neighbor, Bob, had some interesting things go on with him too that night. I was like, oh, really? What'd he say? He's like, well, he kind of described the same noises that you heard. He's like, I don't know what the time frame is on it. He said, but essentially he heard something, just assumed it was critters going at it with each other, and he just opened up the window and took his shotgun and, shot off a round to make him quit, and then went back to sleep. I was like, huh, interesting. Anything else? He's like, no, that's all I know. And therefore, that's all that I know about it. So I don't know. It was quite the experience, and it was not very fun. Okay, so generally speaking, this is the end of the story. Did a few more weird things happen? Yes, there's a couple of things that happened, like I saw a giant spider and stuff like that days later. But, generally speaking, that's the end of what all happened there. So, first I would say, go and watch the older videos if you want to know exactly everything that happens and the time frame that it happens. Like, I lay everything out. It's already there. The audio quality kind of sucks, but it's there. And like I said, if there's more interest, we'll go and do it. But that's essentially the end of the story. Now, the way I close this story out is I go and I tell you guys that, one, the dog did show back up, but it was after 3 days. And that dog was covered in mud. Turns out she was hiding in a sinkhole that was in the pasture. And when I saw her, she was just shaking like a leaf. I mean, I don't know what happened to her, but she was not right after that. You know, this fearless cow dog was now afraid of everything and wanted to constantly be around people 24/7. You know, and it just changed her. And I don't blame her, because the truth of the matter is, I was too after this. You know, my life has never been the same since. The cat that I had that was indoor and outdoor, she didn't care. She was just like, whatever, feed me, human. I don't care. Sucks that you had a bad night, but I'm hungry. Or, I don't know if I'm hungry or not. It's more like, I'm missing like 3 kibbles in the bowl. Give me fresh, you know how cats are. She didn't care. But, so there's that. But the other thing I will say is that, I don't... That's like, generally speaking, why I don't like Ce5. If you want to do it, to each their own, whatever. I'm not your daddy. But I will say that, ultimately you got to understand is that you're essentially making a contract with something to come and interact with you. You don't know what that something is. And when you do that, you leave yourself open for whatever to come in, and for that whatever to do whatever. It's not on the recommend list. It's not safe. I mean, you guys know what I think these things are. Am I going to sit here and preach at you and tell you that today? No. But if you want to read in between the lines and actually listen to me a little bit, awesome. But ultimately, I'm not going to tell you what to do, and I'm not going to tell you what to think. That is for you to decide. But so that's all I got. So guys, reach out, give me your stories. I'm happy to tell them for you or have you on. You know how this works. Check out the merch. Check out my friends. They're all there in the links. I got a Patreon coming soon, so that's gonna be fun. I'm currently putting some stuff back there, and that's gonna be a good time. But yeah, that's what we got going on. So with that being said, I love you. Tuki tuki. Have a great rest of the day.
One shot to the head, I need a blank space. 'Cause everything is a threat, but I never back down, man, I'd rather be dead. I'm making love to fate, and she look better in bed. And I'ma rock this life till I take my last breath. I wanna make a change. I got one life left, so I'm gonna go down swinging, don't you forget. Everything is so boring. Can't get up in the morning. I'm so sick of the mundane and routine. I'm gonna break without warning. I wanna taste the pain. I think I'm seeing all red. 2 bullets in the gun, one shot to the head. I need a blank space. 'Cause everything is a threat, but I never back down, man, I'd rather be dead. I'm making love to fate, and she look better in bed. And I'ma rock this life till I take my last breath. I wanna make a change. I got one life left, so I'm gonna go down swinging, don't you forget. I've gotta find a new purpose, something actually worth it. I wanna look in the mirror and like what I see. I'm sick of feeling so worthless. You wanna sink or swim? I'm gonna go down swinging. Look deep within. I get lost in the feeling. I just need a win. I'm going off, I know it's time to make a change, and I can take the pain. You wanna sink or swim? I'm gonna go down swinging. Look deep within. I get lost in the feeling. I just need a win. I'm gonna find my meaning. I can make a change. I wanna play the game. You wanna sink